Hello and welcome to the Lampkin Elm podcast. My name's Jason. I'm the host here. We cover classic horror. We cover physical media. We cover a little bit of science fiction, a little bit of horror gaming, and just sometimes from time to time, a little bit of fun everything. Today, we are going to be discussing Alien and Aliens because the new Alien Romulus is coming out in the next few weeks. And we're going to talk about Alien and Aliens and what they were trying to say about corporate greed. And corporate greed goes back a long way, but we're going to probably trim it down to the 1800s and the start of the uh, Industrial Revolution. So thank you so much for joining me today. First off, let's just talk about the two movies first, just a little bit, give that background. Of course, there's going to be spoilers. These movies are 40 years old and 35 and stuff like that, 50, almost 50 for Alien. But just remember, there's going to be some spoilers. And I would say if you're going to be listening to this before watching these movies, stop and watch them first and then come back and see me. But let's start with 1979's Alien. Basic overview. Star Wars was huge. It made a big impact on the way movie studios made movies. And the late 70s were a time when every studio was trying to grab up alien, space, science fiction, and make the next Star Wars. Paramount rebooted Star Trek. It was originally going to be a television show called Phase 2, but then they went big and made a very long movie. Beautiful. A bit on the boring side, most would say, but a beautiful movie. Very basic plot. And 20th Century Fox, hot on the heels of the success of Star Wars, wanted something else. And Star Wars obviously made everybody a lot of money, but a studio, if they can have a little bit more control, they're always going to try that. So they get a script by Dan O'Bannon, who worked with John Carpenter on Dark Star, amongst other things, and Return of the Living Dead and all sorts of fun stuff. But they had a script for Alien, and they got this hotshot up-and-coming art director turned full director, Ridley Scott, and he had a vision of what the movie is supposed to be. And since he's an art director, he can put it on paper and show them. And so he was won over. He went back to England and made a movie, and making movies in England is awesome for Hollywood directors because back in 1978 and 79, the studio can't just pop in on a Zoom call and see what you're doing or digitally see dailies and all that fun stuff. So he kind of went home, and that team created this insane alien concept by using Giger as an art director, or not even an art director, but a conceptual artist, a consulting artist. And the famous alien xenomorph was created. And the vibe of the movie is definitely space truckers getting in over their head, and alien gets on ship, starts killing them off individually. One lady at the end, Ripley, defeats the alien and sails off into space, asleep in her capsule. And for 1986, 86's Aliens, you get James Cameron taking what's awesome about Alien and multiplying it and amping it and making it faster, more action. And you see that corporation and greed are more prevalent. The first Alien, it was an undertone. It was one guy talking to a computer in a room, talking to an AI. And then in Aliens, you kind of see this big corporation, Wayland Yutani, putting up some shenanigans, everybody wanting a piece of the action. Remember, in life, anything dollarable is open to people wanting to take advantage of it. So the themes, the undercurrents of Alien and Aliens are cool, awesome, beautiful shot movies. Two perfect directors for the two perfect projects. It's Ridley Scott is probably his finest movie, and it was one of his first. And that's saying something because he made Blade Runner, and he won an Oscar for Gladiator, and ton in between of awesome movies. Same with James Cameron. I know he won an Oscar for Titanic, but Aliens or Terminator 2 are his best movies, and if they were put before the Academy today, they might actually go up for Best Picture, because tastes and times have changed, and it doesn't have to be a stuffy drama or a period piece to win Oscar anymore, or a sandals and swords sorcery type movies, those big set piece type of things. But these two movies had a very big impact on what we saw happening starting in the 70s in pop culture and into the 80s. And then now we definitely are living in an era where corporations are in a lot of media are bad guys. If you want to talk a video game, Final Fantasy VII, the Shinra Electric Power Corporation. If you want to talk any tech drama, it's always some evil Google-like or Facebook-like. But we now are comfortable with the idea of these guys aren't looking out for our best interests. We still don't heed the advice of these movies from 40 years ago, but we understand that they are kind of they're there and they're not out for our best interests. And to talk about those themes, we kind of have to go back a little bit. We're going to talk Anglo-American history a bit. In the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution happened. So steam power became advent. Metallurgy got to a point where they could manufacture large sums of steel being the big one. The Carnegies of the world, if you've ever heard of Andrew Carnegie, the Carnegie Mellon, definitely more of an East Coast thing. But these giant corporations started popping up, and they were definitely concerned about profitability and less about workers' safety and rights and quality of living. So you had terrible conditions. You had, we think things are unsafe now. You had 9-year-olds working in industrial machinery because they were small and they could get into places to fix things. You had women working in windowless, squalid, hot fabric makers, and no fire exits. They're on the 5th floor of a crummy tenement and in a little one-room shop. And just in general, coal miners still have it bad. But, working in a mine in this time, not very pleasant. And we should all appreciate the hard work that the normal human being, the little guy, made to this country, and any country, England, anywhere where there's industrial production. And we just should be thankful that there's hardworking people. And back then, they didn't have days off. They didn't have lunch breaks. Fast food was also an advent of the Industrial Revolution, because people had to get food fast and take it with them. The Cornish and Welsh people had pasties, basically a hot pocket, in the parlances of our time, and pizza wasn't kind of invented or New York style was definitely, people would go and take their uncooked pizza and put it on their industrial equipment for lunch. It'd be warm by the time they needed it. Hamburgers and hot dogs, same thing. Meat with the world's greatest napkin, bread. So lots of things came out of this time. The late 1800s were like going to warp speed for humanity. Agrarian society started ending in the United States. The Civil War really can be the spot where you can say, hey, the Union industrialized even more. I think Cleveland had one steel factory or two steel factories in 1860, and by the end they had like 30. So this idea of we're going to go from an agrarian society like Thomas Jefferson wanted to a industrial production-based society that the Federalists wanted would start coming to fruition. And you had the technology finally caught up to centralized banking and production-based economies. And it didn't change, but as always, quality of life and wages and worker safety are always lagging on the production, on the advances in production. We live with that today. And they were truly going back to the terrible conditions that people lived in. If you look at the works of Upton Sinclair in the Jungle, talking about the meatpacking industry, and Jacob Riis, one of the first photojournalists, his book, How the Other Side Lives, you don't have to read the book. Google Jacob Riis and How the Other Side Lives and see what people are living in. And this is at a time when 5 blocks away, there would be a mega mansion in New York City, and they would be eating peacocks for fun and, not understanding where all their money came from for the most part. And it really has, while we can always say safety's gotten better, work conditions in the United States, and we'll just say the Western world that stuff still happens, unfortunately. There's a reason why, if you look at inexpensive items, they're in countries that are developing. So we need to really definitely think about what we did and where we came from and what we're doing in the modern world. So remember, just because something's cheap doesn't mean that it has a price, because if you either get high quality, high price, or acceptable quality, low price, and that low price, where are they going to cut it? If you've ever run a business, labor is a easy to manage and easy to cut drainer on your profitability. So remember that when we're talking about aliens. So we'll talk we're going to have to talk a little bit about Karl Marx, because he saw this, and I am not condoning communism. I'm not condoning capitalism here. We're just saying what happened. So he, put together his manifesto on communism and why the little guys should be in charge, because there's more of us than them and everything should be equal. And the experiments of communism in the 20th century definitely kind of shown to fail from a standpoint of it's a pretty easy way just to become a totalitarian state and still screw over everybody. So it's definitely not something that has been explored in a positive way. Capitalism has shown that it's, despite its flaws, it has a little bit more going for it for everybody. But it's up to strong governments to ensure fairness. And we've gone up and we've gone down and we've gone up and we've gone down. And one day, hopefully, we'll figure that out. So we're going to fast forward to after World War II. Just like the Civil War, the U.S. came out of a war beat up, but realizing they are the dominant superpower in the world. We invented a device that can split atoms and destroy cities, regardless of the ethical troubles of it. It is a huge leap in science. So with it, from 1945 to 1975, we blew up stuff real good. We designed jets and computers, and we went to the moon, and all this stuff happened. Again, just like the industrialization times of the 1800s, there was this giant leap in technology and production. And what generally does happen is sometimes the human cost, it lags behind in taking care of everybody and making sure your workers are safe and happy and well paid and stuff like that. Because ultimately, if you can cut corners, corporations are not beholden to an individual anymore. They are beholden to a stockholder, and that stock price is important, and you always have to be growing. So we start getting into the, let's just say after 1975, the government's on shaky ground in the United States from a moral and ethical standpoint. Vietnam was terrible. All those people that served, that went over there, served honorably and did their duty. They saw things that they shouldn't have had to see, because it should, better foreign policy would have dictated better results. So the regular guy comes back, starts working at a sawmill or a foundry in Pittsburgh, and then Watergate happens, and we severely start distrusting the government, because if the president, who's supposed to be a kind of a American, you generally want the person that's in charge of the most to be a morally and ethically sound person. And Richard Nixon was a brilliant politician. He was an intelligent individual, but he was a paranoid man, and it was his downfall. But unfortunately, his actions injured many more people than just himself. And, he actually kind of got off scot-free because he was pardoned, and he wrote a book, and he was on talk shows, and he lived happily ever after, and so on. But by the 70s, the United States and England, we think times are violent now, but in the US and England in the 70s, there were left-wing bombings, there were right-wing bombings, there was assassination attempts. Gerald Ford almost got killed a couple of times. It was a crazy time, and there was a lot of upheaval, and the manufacturing industry went through, like everybody in the 70s, kind of a stagflation, where we have inflation and no economic growth. And in fact, instead of economic growth, we had economic decline. Two very bad things. Modern us right now, we've kind of looks like we've kind of beat inflation. It's going down. It would be nice for it to go down quicker, but I was born in 1982, and I think the going rate of a house, 10% was a killer deal. That was a killer home loan back then. And in 2021, when they dropped to an all-time low, I got a 3.5. And if I'd had a more expensive house, I probably could have gotten it in the 2s. But my note is very small, luckily, and I got the best what I could. And 3.5 interest will never be seen. It won't be seen for 15 years unless something changes. But you start, I digress. You start getting, people are distrusting a lot of things. And it's more of a thing in Japan than the US, truthfully. But that idea of coming out of the post-war, it's still prevalent, I should say, in Japan, of that idea of the company man, where you start working for Toyota at 22 out of college, you're going to retire at Toyota at 65 or 70, wherever. And you're going to work there your whole life, and you're going to start on the factory floor, and you're going to get your degree in engineering, and you're going to become a guy who designed a better ashtray or bolt or something. And you're going to retire as a company Toyota man, and you'll never own a Honda. The US did have that going out of the war. The big industry, aerospace and military, and you think about those guys at Boeing and Lockheed and Fairchild and all those, they just worked from 1942 to 1980 at the same place. But in America and in the world, definitely by 1980 and the rise of Reagan and Reaganomics, the U.S. went from a manufacturing-based economy to an investment-based economy. And the problem with manufacturing-based economies if people don't buy things, you can't. Why would you build things? If in investment economies, if you're not making things, that is bad on your stock price. So we need to keep our stock price high. How can we cut things? Well, let's deregulate this. Let's cook the books on that. And you get corporations looking at the bottom line. And you get safety and wellness of their employees reduced. The modern equivalent right now would be service-based industry. If you worked retail in 2010 and you worked retail in 2022, might as well be Saturn, the surface of the sun versus the surface of Earth. It changed. And scholars, of course, have been right on this stuff. Historians, economists, engineers write stuff about this. But for most of the people in 1979, they're too busy worrying about keeping their house and, kids, getting the kids to school and providing for their families. So you might not have that extra reading to open that New York Times or that Wall Street Journal or find the latest paper on post-war economics, but you could definitely you could go to the movies on Saturday night and watch a awesome horror movie, Alien. And the idea of Alien is there's space truckers in space, and it's essentially a slasher in science fiction clothing. But it also brings up some big things that are in the undercurrent that especially today are very important. AI on the ship. The Nostromo is the ship in Alien, and there's a room where a supercomputer's there. Definitely Ridley Scott loved him some Stanley Kubrick, so it has that HAL 9000 vibe. And Mother, the computer, is giving orders from the company and making suggestions. And the crew wakes up thinking they're home, and nope, they're by this random planet, and there's a signal, and the company woke them up to tell them they got to go down there and investigate it. They go down there, investigate it, and all hell breaks loose. One of them gets impregnated. One of the best scenes in cinematic history is when we first see the alien. The pure shock on everybody's face was real because no one saw that stuff, the effects beforehand. John Hurt, of course, kind of knew because he had the squib and stuff like that on him. But beautifully shot movie, and beautifully executed. And that alien gets out and starts killing them all. But you see from the very beginning in the dialogue that people are saying at the table, eating breakfast, complaining about their shares and their what they're getting out of this, and people saying, hey, look, this is in your contract. It's in all our contracts. If we hear signs of intelligent life or otherwise, we got to go and explore it and investigate. And that's our job. It's in our contract. Read the contract, people. Always read the contract. And they go down on that planet and, bad things happen. But it turns out that, spoiler alert, this whole thing was engineered from the start for that crew of space truckers to go by this planet, get woken up, and be expendable because the company that's not named, there's subtle hints on it. There's little things on, I think, on their clothing and little plaques on the ship. But this evil company engineered these delinquents. Everybody if you watch the movie, everybody's complaining all the time, and everybody is smart asses. And it's that concept. The Japanese have this concept of odaishib. Dang, I can't say this word. I got to look at it and read it. Sorry, my Japanese is terrible. Oida shibeya. Oida shibeya is quiet firing. Quiet firing is this guy, we don't want him in the company, but think about what I talked about, being a company man. You work for one place in your life, and it's dishonorable. They're socially unacceptable in Japan just to fire somebody. Think about that concept. But you can make them want to quit if you take away all their duties, put them in a room with no windows, and make them sit there for 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day. That will force that person to be like, I want to be productive. If they don't like me, I need to leave and find something else because my life wants to be fulfilling. And it's clear that I have no future here. It's like that episode of Seinfeld where George is working for the Kruger company, and all his shenanigans lead to him, his coworkers kind of, ignore him and bar his door and do all these things to where he can't work. And, George being George is going to be a pain in the ass and continue. But same kind of concept, that idea of quiet firing. Well, this company quiet fires some people by sending them to go get killed by an alien and bring back that whatever it is. It could have been intelligent life. It could have been a computer making bips and bops, and hey, that's an alien computer. But the company engineers it to where these disgruntled employees are sent out on a mission to go get a trailer, essentially, come back, wake up, go down the planet, investigate it. If they die, they die. Come back and secure the cargo, secure whatever it is. They put a plant in. Their medical officer, in the dialogue, if you listen to Dallas, Tom Skerritt's character, and Ripley, Sigourney Weaver's character, they're talking about what the hell's up with Ash. Forgive my language. And it turns out that he was the medical personnel, or the doctor was replaced last minute by the company. Turns out he is in league with the company to make sure a certain set of things happens. And it turns out that he is a android, and he has no ethical core because he's not programmed to have an ethical core. And he goes a little, there's some light killing and whatnot, and he lets the alien on board. He knows that John Hurt's character is pregnant because it's literally on the sonogram on the wall while Tom Skerritt or Sigourney Weaver are talking to him. He is there to make sure that life gets home. He didn't go to get it because somebody has to be there to make sure everything gets home. And let's just say somebody gets sick with some virus or impregnated with some alien. He can program his little sleep pod to wake up before everybody else. And, whoops, they all died due to a horrific industrial accident. And then the company gets their new potential for product. So we all know what happens in Alien. Sigourney Weaver's character, Ripley, kicks ass, takes names, and doesn't have any bubble gum, and beats that alien. And her and the cat sail off into the darkness and live happily ever after. Aliens comes around, and Aliens is the sequel to Alien, and they are both perfect movies in their own ways. They're equally awesome. I can't pick one. They're two different styles of movie, so you can't really directly compare them, but they are equally important and awesome. James Cameron, seeing the experience of Vietnam veterans and seeing the negative sides of Reaganomics and investment culture, weaves a tale of corporate greed in those fast 80s, where the slick up and cupping and corporate guy is going to get his piece of the action because he has inside information. So Carter Burke, who is one of the most Paul Reiser's it's hilarious. Think about Paul Reiser. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, definitely not sleazy. You don't think sleazy corporate guy. You think of Mad About You, Helen Hunt, the cute dog, and he's like this sitcom husband, pleasant human being. But man, it's a testament to his ability to create a horrible, horrible human being, and Cameron's ability and the screenwriter's ability to put that on paper to let him execute. Because Carter Burke is the bad guy. Again, the aliens are not the bad guys in these movies. The aliens are a result of bad human decision. He is such a sleazy 80s grifter, and it's very, very slickly done, where he sends word to that. He secretly gets this information from Ripley, pretends to be her champion and defender. She gets thrown under the bus at a board meeting where they are not in any way concerned about the loss of life. They are concerned about the $40 million in adjusted dollars of the freight and ship. It would be like if you worked for a delivery company and a meteor falls from the sky and hits your truck, and you go back to work and they're mad at you for letting that happen. So Ripley is quiet fired, and she gets a job in logistics, and she becomes a forklift operator essentially. But Carter Burke sends a little message to the planet, and bad things happen. So bad things, of course, are going to happen because Burke knows what happened on the ship, so he does not care about all those colonists on the planet LV-426 where all this started. So he sends them to their doom, essentially. But if one lady can escape, one woman can escape this, we can bring in some Marines and they're going to kick those aliens' ass, and I'm going to be able to get my piece of the action. I'm going to be in the bio weapon division's good graces, and I'm going to get my piece of the pie. All hell breaks loose, and he is found out, and he meets one of his aliens, and he dies. So good on him for getting his just desserts. But this mega corporation, Weyland-Yutani, is behind all these shenanigans, and the director's cut of Aliens is definitely the one you need to watch. The theatrical, if you just see the theatrical, it's perfect. It's a perfect movie. It doesn't need a director's cut. The director's cut is essentially lore building. It's like the Lord of the Rings extension, where people are singing, Lord of the Rings stuff is happening. But central to the plot that Peter Jackson is putting forth, do we need an extra song here, an extra joke here type of thing, an extra world building of something that's just there because Tolkien put it in, and we got to be nice to the Tolkien people and make sure as much of his world is put in. Same with Aliens. If you watch the director's cut, there's a kid on a big wheel with a Weyland-Yutani badge on it, and everywhere you see this company, because it's a company town. It's a mining town in West Virginia that is completely owned by the company, and you're under their complete control. This happened. This still happens in the 1800s, when post Civil War, West Virginia was a state because it broke off from prime Virginia, because it didn't agree with the ideas that the rebels wanted to put forth. And so it broke off and became a state, being rewarded for loyalty to the country. But it was a very low income area. It was a bunch of miners. And back then it was like, you go out as a miner and you hope to strike it rich. After that, big money comes in and invests, and they take it over, and soon it's a company town with Disney dollars, or Union Pacific dollars, or Standard Oil dollars, and they own your house. They control your food. They control everything you can get because you're way out in the middle of nowhere and you're a miner. Same thing with Weyland-Yutani. They're literally giving you the air you breathe, the food you eat. If you look at both of the movies, food is kind of a big deal, because think about it, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, if you've ever gone camping and you forgot food and you got there, well, you got two options. You can leave, or you can go out and get it yourself. And on LV-426, you're not exactly going to go out and pick some vegetables or get a deer. Nuts, berries, all that funsy stuff. But so the 80s idea of corporate greed is exceedingly prevalent in the movie Aliens, and it comes to the culmination of the movie. They blow, they ride off in the sunset while the world is being imploded by an atomic blast. The end. We're going to stop with Aliens, because after that, just watch Alien and Aliens, and watch, despite all its flaws, Prometheus is a pretty decently pretty movie, and Alien Covenant was not bad. But if you're only going to watch two movies in this Alien universe, just watch Alien and Aliens. But what we get out of both movies, if you want to summate what happens? Workers, the regular person, the 9-to-5er, the long haul trucker are at the mercy of these corporations where they control everything. They control the air you breathe, the food you eat, your work environment, and you are an expendable asset. You're a write-off. You are a labor cost, a destroyed property cost, shrink loss, whatever you want to call it, whatever your industry is. And that's been, unfortunately, that's been happening forever. Going back to thousands of years, slave labor was used to build some of the most beautiful things in the world. Lots of Rome, you go to Rome and you look at that Colosseum and you look at all these beautiful structures, Greece, any culture, anywhere you see things that are beautiful and they're built by people that were forced to be there, not wanting to be there to better themselves. So, and we come full circle nowadays, and from ancient times to pre-industrial to industrial to modern days, and we're still dealing with those concepts. And the beautiful thing about modern dehumanization and is that you're not only getting to negatively affect for profit your employees, you can negatively, it's more of a, we can get our piece of the action by people that just want to put pictures on the internet and talk about sports and games and politics and stuff like that. We are living in an era where the small people of the world are still being manipulated by governments and businesses and media. We didn't really get into media, but media is a fun one. Think about the Hearsts of the world. But we all use social media. You might see this on a social media platform, Instagram, YouTube, all that fun stuff. And we're getting free stuff, Google Maps, Facebook, Twitter, all this. We're getting something. What we want out of it is, I want to show pictures of my cute dog. But what corporations are getting out of it are how we can learn how you take information in, and we can tailor a business's plan, a business to manipulate. That's Chip. He has to say his piece. But that Chip, he got me sidetracked, sweet baby boy. But anyway, we are giving information to people and they're using it to influence what we think and what we do and what we eat and what we buy and all that. So just remember, we are not in a golden age of freedom, because this platform we can use can say something. It's good, but it's not a free platform. It's not freedom of the press. Be it you're conservative or liberal or in between, green, yellow, whatever. These social media platforms are both good and bad. So just remember that we're all kind of subject to that. So just remember that. And this is Alien and Aliens, talking about 2 horror movies, action movies. Was not supposed to be as political as I thought it'd be ending up being. But just remember, on a Ken Burns documentary, National Parks, a gentleman says, there's always people close to the till. Anything dollarable is at risk of exploitation. So be it Yosemite National Park or your picture of your dog, just remember, you can control as much as you think, as much as possible, but sometimes it's out of your control and you're just going to have to live with it. But it's important to be smart and know when not to be put in that situation. So that is aliens, and all sorts of crazy stuff. I want to thank you for listening to that diatribe and kookiness, but that's the power of movies and media. They can subtly jab at concepts, and the best part about it is the best ones don't go out and say it. The best ones say, hey man, maybe in some spare time you should read this book or research this concept. And really truly great directors of movies can elicit those thoughts, and it's up to us to, if we find interested in a subject or we're alarmed by a subject, let's go read a book, watch a documentary, listen to a lecture, and take some information in and be smarter individuals. Other than that, I think that's all we're going to have for today. I can't really think of anything that's coming out that is going to be a must buy for me. I need to kind of keep checking like Blu-ray.com and all those really awesome Instagram, Dawn of the Discs, discs with a C, not a K, shows like all the cool new releases that are coming out. And I suggest you look there because it shows a picture of the cool thing and it shows you when it's going to be released. But Blu-ray.com is always a good place to see what's coming out. But I can't think of anything. About the only thing that I don't think I'm going to buy it, but because I already have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on 4K. But there is a pretty cool special edition of the forthcoming video game, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it comes with a copy. It's a Feelies type of special edition of a game where you get the movie too. But at $100, and I already spent $30 on the 4K Blu-ray, and I got the cool steelbook that is the poster, the 70s poster, I think I'll pass. Going forward, I think I'm still working on my tournament-based best of 70s versus 80s. I keep adding and removing, and I want to get it right because I don't want to forget anything. I realized I didn't really even have like an Italian or a Giallo, and it might just be the international choices, because think about all the awesome English, French, Italian horror that are around. So we definitely want to make sure to get everything in. So that's probably going to be, maybe that'll be in time for football season. We're coming up on that. Go Bears. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it caused you to go watch Alien and Aliens again and look for those little things. And I hope if you learned anything today, learning something new every day is one of the best things you can do. You know how they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away? But if you gain a new piece of knowledge that you can learn and use later, you've had a pretty good day. So thank you so much for listening and actually watching. This has been one cut, so forgive me. I'm new to video podcasting, so you'll have to forget my boy Chip and some background noise. But this is the first of the podcasts that I'm doing live on video, and so I hope to have it on YouTube and video platforms. So thank you so much for enduring my rambling way of doing this podcast. No cuts means no do-overs. So thank you so much. Again, I want to always thank Jared Van Natta. He is one of the finest human beings in the world, and he helps me put this podcast together. And the genesis of Lampkin and Elm definitely was he helped form what this thing's going to be. And of course, this is I mean, I think I've been doing this 6 months now, and in a year it might be a little different, but my want of a subject is I love history, I love horror. I want to put those things together, and let's call it a historical lecture on film and history. And I hope you gain something out of it. And I very much want to thank you for being here. You all have a wonderful evening. Go USA, or go whatever country you're from. I hope your Olympic athletes do wonderful. We're about a week away from it being over. It's a fun time every 4 years to go see that. And it's a good vision of what we can be. Let's keep that momentum in worldwide friendliness going into 2025 and beyond. Let's hope. We can always hope. And have a good day. Thank you so much.